This is Mr. Martin. These are video notes for Pre-Calc Advanced. In this video we're going to be talking about our coordinates on the unit circle and what I feel would be your best course of action for calculating these in the quickest and easiest manner. So we talked about the special right triangles in the unit circle, and you can go ahead and you could draw those right triangles every time and figure out what the ratios of the sides is, but it becomes cumbersome and it takes time to do that. And really what I recommend is that you basically just memorize these three pieces of information that I've asterisked here. So we talked about any pi over 6 is going to have the same coordinates and tangent no matter where it is. The only difference is you need to figure out which quadrant you're in so that you know what's positive and what's negative. So for pi over 6's, I know we have root 3 over 2 and 1/2 and root 3 over 3. And that's always going to be the case for every pi over 6. And then for pi over 3, we figured out that basically those x and y coordinates are flip-flopped. So we would have 1/2 root 3 over 2, and then the tangent would be the y over the x, which simplifies to root 3. Again, if we were in a different quadrant than the first quadrant, we'd have to figure out what was positive and what was negative using our all students take classes. First quadrant, all of them are positive. Second quadrant, only the sine is positive. Third quadrant, only the tangent is positive. And fourth quadrant, only the cosine is positive. And then, so these were from our 30, 60, 90 triangles. This was also from our 30, 60, 90, just at a different orientation. And then we had our pi over 4, which is from our 45, 45, 90 triangle. And it's an isosceles right triangle, and we figured out that the two legs were root 2 over 2, and then the tangent was y over x, which is just going to be 1. So my recommendation is take a little bit of time to memorize these three pieces of information here. Then when you have a quiz or a test, or when you do the final exam, just write these up at the top of your paper and you can go back and refer to them. And remember, the x values are always the cosines, the sine values are always the y values. X's are cosines, y's are sines, and then we'll have our tangent outside, which is y divided by x. Again, you could figure it out every time by doing 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2 and simplifying, or you could just memorize it. So pi over 4, this is my cosine, this is my sine, this is my tangent. Pi over 3, this is my cosine, this is my sine, this is my tangent. Now, one way that you can memorize this is just to take a sheet of paper and fill it up with these three things over and over until you've got it. I do have some little ways that I use to memorize it. For my pi over 6, okay, so pi over 6 and pi over 3, they have the same coordinates, they're just flip-flops. So how do you remember which one comes first? Well, for pi over 6, I know that 3 times 2 is 6. So that's a little trick there. Oh, pi over 6, root 3 over 2 comes first. Then I have 1/2. For pi over 3, I remember that the 1/2 comes first because 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay, so just a little trick. You could figure out whatever trick you want if you don't like mine. And then for the tangents, again, I remember that root 3 over 3 goes with 6 because 3 plus 3 is 6. And for pi over 3, it's just root 3. So you basically have root 3 over 2, 1/2, root 3 over 3. Those are 3 values. We know pi over 4 is both root 2 over 2, so that's a 4th value. The tangent is 1, that's a 5th value. And root 3, that's a 6th value. So you basically have 6 different numbers to memorize and where they would go and fit in here. Okay, so once you've done that and you memorize that, again, you just need to figure out which quadrant you're in, because any pi over 6 is going to have these coordinates, any pi over 4 is going to have those, any pi over 3 is going to have these, the tangents will be the same. and you just need to figure out positives and negatives. So let's take a look at some practice problems. We'll do a couple of these together and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. So sine of 2 pi over 3. So I scrolled up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, okay, so pi over 6. I know that's going to be root 3 over 2 1/2. I know my root 3 over 2 comes first because 3 times 2 is 6, so that matches. And I know that my tangent is root 3 over 3 because 3 plus 3 is 6, so that's my trick for remembering that. I know pi over 4, that's my root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, y divided by x is 1. And then my pi over 3, okay, that's the same as pi over 6 except they're flip-flopped, so that's 1/2, root 3 over 2, and then my y divided by x, that's just going to give me root 3. Because I know that that 3 and that 3 have to match. Okay, so now I've got sine of 2 pi over 3. So these are my cosine, sine, tangent, cosine, sine, tangent, cosine, sine, and tangent. Alright, so I've got a 2 pi over 3, it's a pi over 3, and it's a sine, so I know that I'm going to have to be using this 3 pi, or square root of 3 over 2. I know it's square root of 3 over 2, I just need to figure out which quadrant I'm in, so I'm going to graph this. So it's a pi over 3. I know this would be 3 pi over 3, so 2 pi over 3 has to be 1 back from that. So that's going to be my 2 pi over 3. And I know that I'm in the second quadrant. So I've got all students take classes. I know the sign is positive in the second quadrant, so this has to be positive root 3 over 2. Alright, let's go on to the next one. We've got a pi over 4. It's a cosine. I know any cosine of pi over 4 has to be root 2 over 2. So let's do root 2 over 2, and now we just have to figure out whether it's positive or negative. So pi over 4, as I know that's 8 pi over 4. We would start at 0. Whoop, 4 pi over 4. All the way around is 8 pi over 4. Halfway around would be 2 pi over 4. And then 2 and 4 is 6, so this would be 6 pi over 4. So 11 pi over 4, go all the way around, that would be 8. That would be 10 to the top, and one more over to here. Put my arrow back over there. So that's 11 pi over 4. All students take classes. So in the second quadrant, only the sign is positive, which means that this has to be negative. Alright, so let's do one more. I'm going to change this to a 4 because that was the same as that problem there. So let's do part J, and then I'll let you go and try and do the rest. You can check those in class. So I know that it's a pi over 4, and I know that any pi over 4 has a tangent of 1 because I memorized that. So that's going to be 1. I just need to figure out whether it's positive or negative. So let's take a look at this as a graph. Here would be 4 pi over 4. So if it was positive pi over 4, it would be right here. So if you remember, our little trick was reflect that over the x-axis. Negative pi over 4 is going to have to be here, and then if I finish graphing it, it would go like that in the negative direction. So that's negative 5 pi over 4. All students take classes. This is the tangent, and I know in the second quadrant only the sign is positive, so this has to be negative 1. Alright, so go ahead and finish the rest of those and check those in class. If you have any questions, make sure you ask. And that's the end of this unit for the semester, so we'll see you next time.